Today I'm going to teach you the biggest lessons I've learned after 6 years in sales. Look, I'm going to be real with you. Most of what gets thrown around today in the sales world is overcomplicated. I've worked in car sales, I've worked in high ticket sales, I've coached reps from zero to their first commission checks, and managed offers all the way up to $500,000 a month in revenue. I've seen every kind of sales environment there is. I'm Brendan, and I was Andy Elliott's #1 sales rep on his sales team. I've had $25,000 commission months in car sales, $100,000 commission months in high ticket, and I've personally built and scaled sales systems for offers doing over $500,000 a month. So when I say these are the biggest lessons I've learned after 6 years in sales, this isn't theory. This is what I've lived, what I've coached, and what I've watched separate the reps who make it from the ones who don't. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with point number 1, and this is avoiding the fatal mistake that kills a sale instantly. So before I tell you exactly what it is, I'm gonna tell you an analogy that really makes this make sense and drives it home. So when I used to sell cars, right, people would come into the dealership and the first thing they'd say is, you'd greet them and they'd go, you'd say, hey, like, great to have you here. So excited. How can I serve you? And they'd immediately go, hey, we got a 700 credit score, or we got good credit, right? They wouldn't tell you the exact score, but they tell you we got good credit. And they'd say, we already know what we want. We want that blue car over there. We've already done all the numbers. We know exactly what we want. We're going to be the easiest sale ever. If you could just get us the keys so we can test drive it, then, we'll drive it, make sure we like it. And then, we're going to be your easiest sale today. You would have this happen in car sales. It's a very common thing. Anybody who's ever sold cars or currently sells cars knows what I'm talking about. And the thing is, when you're a new sales rep and you get a lead or a prospect that comes into the dealership talking like that, it gets you really excited, right? Because you're constantly dealing with rejection, customers, etc. So when you come across a prospect who seems like they're going to be an easy sell, it gets you excited, like the dopamine fires, because you're like, oh shoot, like this is going to be an easy commission right here, right? But the problem is when you fall for that trap, right? When customers show buying signals right out the gate, it usually is a red flag. And beginner sales reps don't understand this, right? So going back to that analogy, what commonly happens with sales reps that are less experienced is as soon as they get a customer who shows intent right out of the gate, they start skipping the process, okay? They go into the dealership, grab the keys, take the test drive. They tell their boss, hey boss, I got a lay down sale out here. Like they're going to be ready to go. And sure enough, they do the test drive and they skip steps, right? They were supposed to fact find and land that person on the car first, like figure out their credit, figure out their buying power, figure out, their intent, like how ready are they to pull the trigger. But instead, the sales rep got so excited and they were so faithful in this person saying, telling them what they told them. They skip the steps, they do the test drive, they take the car, park it up front, and then they go to do a proposal inside. They go to propose the numbers to the prospect. And then they're super shocked when the customer says, oh, I can't pay that, or, oh, I don't have the money yet, or, oh, I didn't plan on buying until next year. And it crushes reps, right? And it all could have been avoided if they just did this one thing, and that is build the gap. It doesn't just apply to car sales. It applies to every single sales field that exists, okay? In high ticket, it's the exact same way. All the time when reps come from different industries like door-to-door car sales or anything like that, they get into high ticket, they'll get on the phone with prospects, and the first thing the prospect will say is they'll come right out of the gate and they'll ask a buying question, right? Or they'll ask a question that's product related. And what reps will start doing is they'll immediately start barfing all over their prospect and pitching their product or services and talking about it. But you have to remind yourself, you got to follow the process. You got to build the gap first. In high ticket sales, the process works like this, right? You could give it a million different names for the different steps of the process, but in its simplest form, the foundation of a high ticket sales call is like this: intro, discovery, pitch, and close, right? The discovery is where the sale is either won or lost. Okay. And if you don't run a discovery, you're not going to close. You might close one here and there. You might get lucky, get a lay down sale who was going to buy, even if they didn't speak to a salesperson, but you are not going to close at the highest level until you build the gap properly with all your prospects. So what are things you need to look out for? Like, how do you avoid making this mistake? Well, it's simple, right? Whether it's car sales, high ticket sales, whatever it is, prospects will come right out of the gate. Hey, I just want the price. Hey, I'm ready to buy. I just want the price. Hey, can you tell me about your product, etc.? I just kind of wanted more information. The hardest prospects, or I should say like the red flag prospects, will give you these types of, statements right out of the gate at the beginning of the sale. But what you have to do is you cannot fall for the trap. You cannot get into telling them about your product just yet. You've got to run your discovery first. So what you do is you basically deflate their statement, right? You handle it and you go right back to your discovery. You got to remember this, right? As the closer, as a sales rep, you're the one who steers the conversation. Customers, and we used to say this all the time in car sales, may buy 2-3 cars every 10 years. Maybe they buy one every couple years. And if you're a car salesman, you do this every single day, right? You sell dozens of cars a month. So you get way more practice running your process than the customers ever do the buying process, right? So you got to remember that. You got to steer people, right? They're going to want to get ahead of you. They're going to want to like show you that they're going to be the easiest sale ever. And if you fall for it and you skip building the gap, it's going to be a bad time. So that's number one. If you make that mistake, if you ever made it, which if you're in sales and you've been in sales for longer than a day, you definitely have, because everybody's made this mistake. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And now you won't let it happen ever again. So that's shift number one. You do that, your sales are going to increase. Anytime you skip the steps, it's surely to backfire on you. So now let's go on to point number two. Point number two is that you cannot sell every prospect the same. So another lesson that is hard learned for, new sales reps, but experienced sales reps know, and they know very well, is that people have different personality types. And if you try to sell to every single person the same, you're going to run into a lot of friction. And I'll give you a perfect example of this, right? So I'm a very energetic person. I'm loud, I'm outgoing, I'm extroverted, and I like to make sure I'm having a good time anytime I do anything, right? And I would always, have problems in sales talking to A types. Okay, A types is what we refer to as the people that are aggressive. They're demanding. They want to boss you around. They're like, hey, just tell me the price. Like, I don't need to hear the sales pitch. Bull crap. Those types of people. I would always have so much friction with those types of prospects because I didn't understand their personality type. And for the longest time, I always thought to myself, like, these people are just stupid. Right? Like, they're just terrible human beings. But after learning personality types and really studying it, I realized they think differently, right? And if you go through life thinking that anybody who's not like you is an idiot, you're going to have a bad time. You'll never be able to lead people or sell at a very high level. And it wasn't until I discovered the DISC personality types that everything started to kind of click for me. And if you've studied psychology, personality types before, you know exactly what I'm talking about, the DISC framework. But I'll break it down just for those of you who this is brand new to, because it's revolutionary once you really understand how to apply it to sales. So DISC basically is the 4 different personality types, right? Some people are those A-type people. They're more demanding. They're very clear. They're very strong in what they want. That's the D-type. The I-type is more of like myself, like I described, outgoing, but always having a good time. Not taking life too serious at any point in time. And now the other 2 personality types are going to be the S-type. And the best way to think about this type of person is this is someone who's introverted and always looking out for other people, right? They never want to be in the spotlight, and they're very caring, and they're always thinking in terms of like, how's everybody else around me feeling, right? And this is the type of person who's always thinking in terms of how other people are feeling. So think about somebody who's introverted, doesn't really ever want to be in the spotlight, but they're very compassionate, and they're always finding ways to take care of other people. And the last type is the C-type. And this is a personality type of somebody who is very, very analytical. And if you've been in sales for quite some time, you know exactly what type of prospect this is to deal with. This is the person who wants to know everything about the product, when it was invented, who made it, every single possible detail you could give them, and then they still need like 8 years to think about it. This is the C-type. And as you can start to see, all of these prospects need to be catered to differently. If you try to sell an analytical person the same way you'd sell like an I-type, like somebody like myself who's very emotional and likes to have a good time, you're going to struggle. That is for certain. So the question becomes, how do you actually take this and apply it to sales? Well, the most simple way I've ever heard it broken down about how to deal with these personality types in sales is coming from a book called Surrounded by Idiots. It's one of the best books I've ever heard on the DISC profiles, and it gives you a tactical guide on how to actually handle people in real life. So the best way to think about it is like this, right? The D and the I type, those personality types, are more extroverted people, and the S and the C type are more introverted. So you've got like the D type personality who's very got a hard shell, very demanding. They want what they want when they want it, and they like getting their way, and if they don't, they're gonna throw a fit. That's the D type. The I type is like myself, emotional, excited, wants other people to feel good, wants to have a good time and stuff like that, right? Both of those personality types are very extroverted. And then you've got the S and the C type, and these are more introverted people. Now, in addition to that though, the D type and the C type are more logical people. They think in terms of logic. They're not very emotional. They aren't very in tune with how people around them are feeling. So they can hurt your feelings sometimes. And if you're not one of those types, it can be very hard to work with those people because you think they don't like you when in reality it's just their nature. And then the I type and the S type are very emotional people. So these people are way more focused on, their feelings, their emotions, how other people around them are feeling. They're compassionate, and they're not so focused on the nitty-gritty details of a deal. Breaking it down this simple is like what really made it make sense sense for me. So when you're sitting across from a prospect, you can simply ask yourself, does this person seem to think more logical or more emotional? Is this person more extroverted or introverted? And once you know if they're extroverted and logical or extroverted and emotional or vice versa, you can start to figure out what personality type that person is and how you need to cater to them. Now, once again, if you'd like to know more about this, I'd highly recommend the book Surrounded by Idiots. I think it's by Thomas Erickson. So check that out. But let's go ahead and move on to point number 3. Point number 3 is that the best sales reps do not let their emotions affect their performance. So as sales reps, all the best sales reps that I know are very emotional, right? If you think back to the personality types, they're certainly the more emotional folks, right? But that can be your detriment as a sales rep if you let it, right? Because sales is brutal. I tell people all the time that, salespeople are psychopaths. Okay, if you're going to make it in sales, you got to be a little bit crazy. You got to have a chip on your shoulder. You got to really want it because you're going to get told no all day long. People look at you as the scum of the earth and you're constantly getting told no. You're constantly having to deal with rejection and it's an internal battle, right? Way more so than it is an external battle. So sales reps though, like especially the ones that aren't that good, they're constantly moving up and down. Like their mood is constantly affected by the external world, right? They get told no a couple times, they sink. They close a deal, they're through the roof, right? And this is the most common way to spot a beginner sales rep, somebody who's super emotional. The OGs in the game, the guys have been doing this for a couple years, several years, decades plus, they don't get affected. Like if they close a deal, they're like, cool, on to the next, let's go. If they lose a deal or multiple deals, they have a bad day, week, month, year, whatever it is, they're like, okay, it's fine, on to the next one. I learned, let's get better, right? I heard a quote by Ty Lopez one time. He said the best performers are at a constant 7 out of 10 in terms of their mood, right? Because the thing is, if you get too high, you're bound to soon hit a point where you're going to go super low. But if you can stay even-headed no matter what's going on around you in life, then you're going to have a way better shot. You're going to show more consistently. You're not going to be affected by swings in performance because at the end of the day, when we're talking to prospects, I always tell people this, we can influence their decisions, but we cannot control them, right? So all we can do is do the inputs and run our process at the highest level and become as good as we possibly can and do our best to help people, but we can't make them make decisions, okay? So sales reps, you can get really consistent. However, you can't predict exactly what you're going to make each and every month, right? Now, again, if you get good, your win percentage is going to be way higher. You're going to make a ton of money, right? That's for sure. But if every single deal emotionally impacts you, you're going to have a very rough time. A sales is going to feel like riding a roller coaster. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the key to make sure this doesn't affect you? And I got one word, it's data. Best sales reps, they remove the emotion and they just look at the data. What inputs give me the outputs that I want? Number, like my average order value, meaning like when I make a close, how much does it pay me? If you can do these numbers, you can do what's called hedging your inputs, meaning you can put in so much input, it'd be impossible for you to fall short of your goals. And if you look at things from a data perspective, you know that if you've gone through a rough patch where you've taken a couple calls that haven't closed, your win is coming right around the corner. It could be the next call, could be the next 5 calls you close, right? So know your data. How many live calls do you need to take to hit your goals? What's your close percentage, right? What's your average order value? You need to know all these numbers so that way whenever you go through a downswing, you can look at them and be like, hey, looks like the next couple calls I'm going to take are going to be, deals, right? I'm going to put those deals through. And the last thing I'll say, and this is something I can credit to my career in basketball. I played Division II basketball in college, and it was one of the best experience I ever had playing sports because it taught me to be, taught me mental toughness and stuff like that. But the number one lesson I took from basketball was this. As a 3-point shooter, which is what I was, even if I missed the last 10 shots, my mindset was always, hey, the next one is going in for sure, right? Even if I'm 0 for 10, 0 for 20. And I'd get hot streaks sometimes and I'd go 10 for 10 and I'd absolutely crush it and I'd have great games. But no matter what, whether I was performing or not, if I got an open shot, I'm taking it and I'm going to make it, right? And that's got to be your mindset in sales too. Point number 4 is going to be that coachability is your number one asset as a sales rep. So I have now at this point coached hundreds of sales reps, okay? And I've seen the good ones, I've seen the bad ones and everything in between. And the number one differentiator in whether or not a sales rep is going to have a good career long-term is how quickly they implement feedback and how coachable they are. So for myself, right, I've been in sales about 6 years now. And when I first started, my first 6 months in car sales, I was absolutely terrible. I went through that period of time every sales rep goes through where every single day I was thinking about quitting and going back to my 9 to 5, right? It wasn't until I started getting coaching and investing in my skill set that I started to really increase my income. But what I noticed after I started to train and start to develop my skills was that I'm actually a really quick learner. I could literally watch a video at night one evening. The next day I'm applying exactly what I learned. I'm practicing the technique. I'm implementing the word track. right? I'm handling the objection differently. And that becomes a very good feedback loop. It becomes a really good dopamine hit, right? You get addicted to getting better every single day. And, I never really understood like what allowed me to scale so fast, but looking back, that's really what it was. It was my speed to implementation. When somebody taught me something, I implement immediately. I didn't question their credentials. Wasn't cynical about it. Thought to myself, this person is where I want to be. They've gotten the results I've got. Whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do it. No questions asked. Alex Hormozy once said this about learning, right? Learning is behavior change. Okay. If you consume a video, but you go on about your day and your behavior doesn't change around whatever that video just taught you, you didn't learn, right? You just consume. Learning is changing your behavior. I swear the best sales reps, they're the most coachable. They apply feedback so fast. And it's almost like they have this ability to just, take things and internalize them and start implementing them immediately, right? And last thing I'll say on this, and this is a big thing, the best sales reps also are students of life. Okay, so for me, I don't care where I'm at. I could be watching a movie, I could be out traveling, whatever I'm doing. I could be at a restaurant. If I hear a line, like a one-liner, or hear an analogy that I think would help me in my sales career, I'm jotting it down. I've got a vault of analogies, one-liners, etc., objection handling work tracks I've come up with myself because I'm always trying to get better and I'm looking for them even in the most weird places that you'd never think you could go learn anything. My mind is always looking for the next level. All right, so we have now arrived at point number 5, and this one is going to be by far the most important, and that's why I saved it for last. And this is going to be conviction. Okay. So the number one thing I always ask people, I always like to give salespeople crap. And this is one of the things I always like to do when I'm talking to a sales rep, right? And casual conversation, if something comes up that they start talking about that they're passionate about, and I recognize that, I always like to do this one thing. Okay. So let's say a sales rep is talking about something they're passionate about, like a certain sports team or something like that. I'll immediately go, wait, hey man, I don't really like that team. Why do you feel like that team's good? They kind of suck, right? And the funniest thing happens, the strangest thing, right? They immediately start pushing back, okay? Especially if it's something they truly believe in. They'll fight back. They'll say, what do you mean, dude? Are you stupid? You don't understand sports, whatever it is, right? And I then go on to argue with them a little bit more before I finally point out, I go, dude, you're convicted. That is selling right there. And you didn't even try to sell me. See, one of the biggest things that holds salespeople back is their viewpoint on sales. It's not the word tracks. It's not the techniques, not the process or whatever, the product they sell. It's the simple fact they look at selling as something that is not good. And the best sales reps, they believe in what they do with all their might. They understand that the people they sell to have problems and it pisses them off and they want to help that person change and they don't feel bad about it, right? One of your biggest sales breakthroughs could literally just be understanding that, dude, people have problems. They need your help. And it's your duty, obligation, and responsibility if you're in the seat of a closer to help that person solve their problem. Another way to look at it is like this. Doctors have to go to school for a decade before they're ever allowed to practice medicine. Lawyers, decades. All these other careers, they require certifications, degrees, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in schooling before the professionals are ever able to actually do their job. In sales, you get thrown into a seat. You can go walk into a dealership like I did at the age of 19, 20 years old with a terrible record, no driver's license, and get a job at a car lot as long as you have a pulse, right? So anybody can get into sales and there's a low barrier to entry, so people don't respect the career. And that's what screws up most sales reps. The best ones, though, understand that the position they're in, sales is the best opportunity ever that most people don't ever even consider as a career because you get to help people, make a ton of money, and live life on your own terms. So that's the biggest thing, right? I wanted to save that for last because once you have this breakthrough, everything changes. If you're not making at least 100, 200, 300 grand a year in sales, you most likely look at sales as something that's predatory. And the biggest mindset shift you could have coming off this video is that sales is something you do for people, not something you do to people. And when it comes to this last point on conviction, I'll leave you with this, right? You have to understand that at the end of the day, sales is about change, okay? And human nature, it is in our nature as human beings to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. And one of the things we fear the most in life is change. We fear, what are we going to lose? What's going to change? It's going to be uncomfortable. But you have to understand that discomfort, you have to help the prospect push through that, right? So if you know that your product is going to solve their problems, even though it might be a little bit uncomfortable for them to say yes, you have to look at it as, I will do whatever I have to do to challenge your beliefs, help you overcome that fear, move forward so that you can have a better life. And I won't feel bad about doing my job because I know the impact it's going to have on your life when you say yes. That's got to be your mindset. No questions asked. And if you do that, your life will change in sales. So there it is. 6 years of sales in 5 5 lessons. Now, here's what I'll tell you to do with this information. Don't try to do all 5 at once. Pick the one that you already know applies to you, that one that stung a little bit, and work on that one until it's not a problem anymore. Then move on to the next one. That's how the reps I coach actually improve, not by like overhauling everything overnight, but by stacking one real change on top of another. If you want to see what this looks like in practice, real case studies, real results from reps and coaches I've worked with, I've got that link below in the description so you can go check it out. And if this video gave you something, make sure to share it with a friend and send it to somebody who needs to hear it. Let's go.